If you didn't need to make money, how would you choose to spend your time? And if I didn't need to make money, I know that I would still do the show because I really genuinely enjoy doing it. You know, if I didn't need to make money, maybe I would spend less time trying to get sponsorships. Maybe I would hire an editor so I didn't have to deal with it or whatever, but I would still do the show because I still I just really like doing it. And so if you're not comfortable like starting the thing when you're doing it, if you're not comfortable with the idea that this may never make money, would you still do it if it didn't make money?
It still hits, I don't miss it. It's go, 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 like a go, go flow. And I'm almost known, and I told you so. When I throw these flows like it's Rochambeau, and I ain't too close, it's Joe Smo goes. And I'm on my grind, that is all the time. I do not do breaks, that's right, I stay in dry. And look, I'm back with a little bit of that, and a little more cash than it came with. Ready, that cat is out that bag, but I still ask you, the boy got skills. I don't need her, I don't need him, I don't need help with me, I got this. I can sing songs, I can spit raps, and I can do both, even do this, word.
This episode is brought to you by Anthracite Pallet Solutions. Need reliable, durable pallets to keep your business moving? At Anthracite Pallet Solutions, we specialize in new and used 48x40 wooden pallets. Whether you're shipping, storing, or stacking, we offer high-quality pallets that keep your operations running smoothly. With our own fleet of trucks and trailers, we deliver on time, every time. And if warehouse space is a concern, our drop trailer services have you covered. From custom orders to large-scale deliveries, we're here to meet your every need with top-notch customer service and unbeatable prices. We're currently shipping within 2 hours of Scranton, Pennsylvania, including Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Maryland. Call us today at 570-606-9206 or inquire online at anthracitepallet.com and let us handle your pallet solutions. Anthracite Pallet Solutions, built to last, designed to move. This episode is brought to you by Sweat Tent, the pioneers of the portable wood-burning sauna. Did you know that using the sauna 3 to 4 times per week could reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease by up to 50% and make you 60% less likely to experience Alzheimer's disease? That's why I've been a big fan of the sauna for years. But having to go to a crowded gym to do it isn't ideal. And all the at-home options are bulky and expensive. That's why I only use the Sweat Tent for my sauna needs. It's the most storable and affordable wood-burning sauna on the market. It not only takes minutes to set up, but it can reach 200 degrees Fahrenheit in 30 minutes or less. So whether you're enjoying it yourself in your backyard, with friends, or in need of a reliable sauna on the go, Sweat Tent is your best choice for the most portable, storable, and enjoyable outdoor sauna experience. All On the Stacks listeners will receive $100 off when you use code OTS. Visit sweattent.com today to get $100 off your purchase with code OTS at checkout. Again, that's sweattent.com to get $100 off with code OTS. Sweat Tent, helping you fire up your home wellness routine. This episode is brought to you by FitAF. If you haven't already noticed, I live and breathe entrepreneurship. Whether it's launching new ventures, attending pitch meetings, or mentoring budding entrepreneurs, my schedule is jam-packed. And that's where FitAF steps in. Their menu changes weekly, offering a variety of chef-inspired meals designed by nutrition experts using only the best quality ingredients, keeping me fueled and focused. Their vast selection of meals has you covered for all types of dietary restrictions and diet plans, including keto, paleo, vegetarian, vegan, gluten-free, and more. As an On the Stacks listener, enjoy our exclusive offer. Get 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more when you use code OTS at checkout at fitafnutrition.com. Again, that's code OTS for 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more at fitafnutrition.com. Healthy meals and seamless nutrition, keeping entrepreneurs at the top of their game. You started only like a few months before I did. I started 2 weeks before the 2 weeks to flatten the curve. That's when I started. I started right before the pandemic. So, you and I both have like a similar, journey in the podcasting world. And
well, I was just talking to my friend Nate Vom Hoff, whose episode dropped this morning. He's the biggest drone videographer and photographer in Milwaukee. His stuff's so sick, dude. And he's been like on a bunch of things lately. But I think
I've seen you shared some of his stuff before.
Dude, yeah, he's incredible. And I will be all week now because his episode just dropped this morning. But I was just texting him like earlier saying, hey, I'm about to hop on this show or whatever. But the episode's live. Here's the links. I'm going to share that. We're going to do this collab post later today and, whatever. And he was like, oh, what show? And I was like, actually, it's this one. And I said, and this is me and him were talking about this during our episode, that having peers is so key to be like not feeling alone and like understanding the trajectory of how things work and knowing that it's okay that things haven't blown up in a certain time frame and being able to share something you're excited about with someone or whatever. And I was like, me and Bill have been friends like for I don't even know how long on Instagram. It's got to be like several years. Like it's been a long time. And it's cool because like me and you have grown at a relatively similar pace. And we're just like on these like kind of parallel trajectories. You're on the East Coast. I'm right in central Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You know,
crazy.
And it's like kind of similar, but not. But you're one of the few people that is like a true peer to me, that's like doing something similar enough that's on like a similar level where I can actually discuss something with you and you get it.
Yeah, we can relate like every day, you know. It's like I feel like we live parallel lives, you know.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
You know, going back to the mistake thing, you know, it's funny. So like I said, like you and I are very similar in terms of, you know, obviously timeline, journey, and growth and all that. And you know, we both are like 5 or just over 5 years into this. And you know, again, the mistake thing. So it was just a couple of weeks ago. I had another virtual recording, you know, just like this. And what did I do? Well, I didn't even have my mic on. Like you know, thankfully, obviously, which is, you know, how I was telling you, like I redundantly record. I have this recording here through Riverside. Shout out to Riverside, by the way. I think they're one of the greatest platforms if anyone's looking to do a virtual podcast. But then, like I said, I also have like my external cameras and mics recording simultaneously, like, you know, in different parts of the room. God forbid one were to fail. And had I not done that a couple weeks ago, like I'd be screwed, you know, because again, I actually had the other mic on, which was across the table from me. And, you know, I'm looking at my Zoom recorder, like, you know, I just peeked out of the corner of my eye right before I started, and I saw the level jump up a little. I know we're getting technical, but I know you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's all little things you check.
Yeah, like I saw it jumping up, and I kind of sort of just, you know, because I've been doing this for so long, just out of habit, I'm just like, oh, it looks all right. I must have just not been talking that loud. I peeked at it. It looked like, you know, it was kind of low, but I was like, I was talking kind of low. I didn't think anything of it. Jumped right into it like this, hit record, and I didn't even realize it until after the recording. And when I went to go export the track, and I'm like, wait a second, like, it sounds like I'm like in another room, and I'm like, oh my God,
echoey, and
I had the wrong mic on. Yeah, I didn't even realize it. You know, so again, like, you know, those, you know, the mistakes, like, they happen pretty regularly, and you know.
Yeah, a big part of it too with the learning curve is figuring out what are the fail safes. I have 3 camera angles, right, just like you, one on each guest and one like on both of us. And I don't really show the one that's on both of us all that often because I don't think it's as dynamic of a thing. When someone's telling a story, it's better to show their face, you know? But really, the important part of that camera angle is in case either me or the guest has an issue with the camera on either one of us, then I still have this other angle and it still works. Like that's just one of many. Or I record mine because it's on the radio. And so it's like a 3-part segment where it's like 15 to 30 minute segments, like each one. So the episodes are 45 minutes to an hour and a half, somewhere in that zone. But I started like stopping all my cameras, like making sure everything's saved. Same with my audio each third of the way through, because I've had issues where things get lost or whatever. And now if something were to happen, I would only lose that one little segment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like I had my memory cards like get too full periodically.
Same.
And so like I have memory cards that are way too big, like way bigger than they need to be, and backup memory cards. And I learned that you have to format your memory cards periodically, even if you delete stuff, because they still like save metadata on
Yeah, it's
them.
weird.
It's like
it?
That's what I'm saying. There's like a million little things that you just kind of like pick up along the way, like that. There's a reason people don't just start a podcast out of nowhere by themselves and have it be huge. Like, it just doesn't really work that way.
No. And you know, it's so funny, like, you know, again, like all this, like going back to like what you said about like the whole secret thing, like, yeah, you know, there is no secret, right? But at the same time, we both have so much knowledge, you know, in the industry, but we're also still learning, you know. And I also, like, a lot of times when I think about it, like, as I'm starting to produce other shows for other people now too, and I forget how much I know. Like as I'm like explaining to somebody like for like the first time, like once I'm starting to take them through the process, I'm like, holy crap! Like then all of a sudden light bulb goes off in my head. Like, wow! Like I start to realize like, wow, how much I really actually do know. And until you go to like actually talk about it and explain it like from scratch of like how to start, where to start, what to do, what not to do, and just there's so much that goes into it. And not to, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, if anyone's listening that's either a beginner or is looking to get into it, I mean, I'm obviously not trying to discourage anyone.
Right. Yeah.
Same time, like, again, there is a lot that goes into it, but, you know, you don't have to have.
But that's everything, man.
Yeah, it's everything.
You know, like I was painting, I was talking to my tattoo artist about it because we're just good personal friends and like we paint together sometimes and stuff. And I was talking about how it's funny, if you saw the other side of this table, I have like paintings I'm working on and stuff. So I have like paintbrushes like right in front of me. But one thing that I've like learned, and I don't remember where I learned it, but I do a lot of kind of like crisp line work, you know, as you could tell on the paint I did for you.
Yeah.
But
Shout,
when I paint,
we got the painting over here.
Yeah. Commission from you. You're one of like, anytime I get a commission work from somebody, I'm so stoked because it's just like a really good excuse for me to paint. I'm one of those people where I like almost need an excuse, you know? One thing I learned is that I put my pinky out when I'm painting and I touch that to the surface, and that holds like significantly more stability.
Oh wow!
When I'm like pulling lines,
so you kind of know.
Didn't.
Yep.
Yeah. It makes everything so much easier as far as crisp line work. Or like if I'm painting murals, which is what I paint primarily, I'll hold my arm with my other hand, and like that helps me be able to pull lines rather than trying to and then being all wiggly. It's like, but it's just like dumb little things like that it's like. You wouldn't even think to tell anybody that you need to know this, but it does make a big difference. It's just all those little things compound.
Yeah, and like you said too, like it's now it's like one of those things. It's just become like such a habit and so natural to you. You know, as with me, like little tips and tricks and things. And again, I can't even think of any right now because I'm just, you know, again, they're all like subconscious now. And once you really start to like think about it and talk about it and explain to people, then you're like, this is why I do that. This is why I do this. And
I've learned like watching other people's shows, because I imagine you're the same way, that like you watch a lot of podcasts that just because you're watching the person. Yeah, well, because you're about to interview somebody. So like you're going to watch the other interviews they've done. So people ask me all the time, like if I listen to podcasts, and like, unfortunately not ones I want to listen to all that often. It's just like random ones that I only saw one episode of the show because I specifically want to know about this person. But I find myself not like trying to be a jerk, being critical, but like noticing things when I'm watching a lot of these podcasts where I'm like, I purposely don't do that. Like this thing that I saw them doing, and I can recognize when I'm watching it, I'm like, and this is why I don't do that, you know, because I'm seeing how that's resulting, like how somebody leads into a question or something. Like and this is just my opinion, but one that I see all the time is when people say, how did that feel when you did this? Or no, even better is when they say, what was that like? I think that's such a horrible question, dude, because every time the person's just like, it was cool. They don't really like know how to like
fumble.
Dive
they fumble
into
over it. Like,
because it's just like you need to ask something a little bit more specific. You know what I mean? Like you can even directly tell somebody, tell me the story of how that came to be. And then they'll go, oh yeah, this, you know, and then they'll get into it and they'll express how they felt or whatever. But like when people just go, oh, I heard this happen to you. Yeah, I heard this happen. What was that like? Dude, the number of podcasts that people say that like throughout the whole interview, I'm like, oh my God, dude, you're just driving me nuts. Like, stop doing that.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude, all the time. And I think I just said this on one of my last episodes, but you know, a lot of times for me, like I consume other shows, like you said, either just to learn about somebody that might be coming on mine or whatever, but a lot for like learning how to do, like if I don't know how to like do something, I'm trying to change something with my show, like I'll just watch other shows. Like, dude, I've even watched yours just to get ideas. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like I'm not kidding. Like,
for sure.
I'll watch everyone from creators like us to all the way up to some of the biggest names in the world, but just to see how they're doing it and just learning, because like I mean I don't know about you, but I learn best from like seeing, just I'm very visual, so like I have to see it and then I do it. Like I have to like actually physically like do it, and then once I do it, like I'm good. Like you don't need to like show me or tell me again. Like I just need to like understand it like that one time, and then it's just like I'm there. Like I'm good.
I need to just be like exposed to something.
Yeah.
Like I don't know that it's an issue or that I could do it better until I'm exposed to it, which a lot of times comes through making a mistake on something. But sometimes just watching other shows too, I'll see something, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. Like how both of us at the beginning of our shows, will just like put in a clip or like a portion from the interview that is just kind of like hook, of like what's interesting about this person. So that way, and immediately with that, before sponsors, before our logo, before anything, people are like, oh, this does sound interesting. Like I got that from the 9 Club, which is like the biggest skateboarding podcast. And I don't really feel bad stealing that idea because one, they don't own that idea. And two, it's just a totally different industry and everything. Like I've interviewed some of the same people as them actually, just because I have a network within pro skateboarding, owning a skateboard shop for so long. But like I took that from them, man. Like the beginning of my show has like a clip that's like from the interview, just whatever part I think was really interesting that says coming up, you know? And I pulled that one day when I was watching the 9 Club, and I was like, that's a good idea. Like, I should definitely do that. And, you know, what's funny is I've seen other people I know start doing that, where I'm like, I wonder if they saw that on my show. I kind of bet they did, you know what I mean? And I don't own that, so I'm not upset about it or anything, but it's just funny when you see how that happens and you're like, oh, I see how you did that. Oh, like, yeah.
Yeah. No, dude, it's the same. Like I said, like I just, everybody always asks me like, oh, like you must know, like, you must listen or watch a lot of podcasts. I'm like, honestly, like I really don't. Like I do, like I said, to learn, like, unless something like is very like interesting to me, like unless it's something like I really want to, you know, see, or if it's a person that like, I really want to like hear, you know, whatever the episode was about. But otherwise, like I said, for the most part, like me, I'm just always learning. I'm always just seeing like how other people do it, and just always trying to, you know, keep it fresh, you know, like I like, you know, as I'm sure the same with your show, but like, you know, I've evolved over the years, and like it just can't be the same all the time. I mean, I'm talking like backgrounds, environments, like just everything. There's just everything from lighting to just the conversation. There's just a million different things that like it just can't really be the same all the time. At least for me, I just feel like it gets like stale, and you have to like.
Life is supposed to be growth, dude.
Yeah.
Like what's the point if you're not learning? Things will get stale, and you're like, what's even the point? It's like, it's funny to use a video game as a reference, but it's like a video game where like once you complete the thing, it's like hard to want to keep playing because you're like,
it's like it's over.
There's really nothing else to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so like for me, I'm in the similar way of like, I'm always trying to learn something, kind of regardless of what the capacity of it is. I'm always like, every week at least, I'm like, what's something small I could do that might be a little bit better? Like maybe I'll play around with my thumbnails and like mess with fonts, you know what I mean? As minuscule as that is. And I'm like, or maybe I'll mess with my media kit and be like, I should add a page that talks about this, and then I'll play around with it. It's like you want to constantly be doing that stuff. But with the podcast thing of like consuming it, it's just because we do it so much, dude. Like how much time we spend editing and prepping for them, and, you know, whatever. It just purely is like it's hard for me to want to spend my downtime, like my free time is really hard to want to spend that consuming podcast content for my like personal enjoyment. Because it's just so much of my life is already doing podcast stuff that I'm like, that's kind of the last thing I want to do. I still love podcasts, but it's like, I don't really want to watch that content currently, you know?
It's kind of like, it's like work after work almost, you know, like it's like, you know, even though like, you know, obviously to some degree, this is, of course, it is work, right? Like it is like what I do or what we do, but at the same time, it's obviously, I think we're both extremely passionate about it.
Otherwise we wouldn't have been doing it this long, dude. Like you don't do it for 5 years, like not making money. I mean, both of us make money professionally now doing it, but like, there was a long time of not making money doing it. And not only that, still the amount of money I make now, dude, if I would have just put 5.5 years into any other career, I would be making 5 times as much.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, totally.
And I am kind of like, I was talking to my partner about this. I am finally at this point where it's like, financially it's stable and it's sustainable. The show does make me enough money to make a living and pay all my bills and all that. And I feel like with this industry, it's like an exponential growth, you know, where it's like 100 podcasts, you know, 75% of them are on this initial tier of in their first 10 episodes or whatever, right? Well, then the next tier that gets beyond that, all of a sudden it's twice as good, right? And there's half as many people. And it just keeps going like that. And so it's like the next level above where we are, you know, if you want to call us mid-tier, high tier, whatever you want to call it. But the next level above us is like a significant jump, not just like in viewership, but in sponsorship dollars and all of that. Because there's not that many people that get to the point of where we are, like where I am at this show now. Not that it's like massive, but like it is by far the biggest one in this part of the state that I live in, right? And like, in my opinion, it's the best one in the state. No, like, not trying to talk smack to all my other buddies that do podcasts in Wisconsin, but I'm the best.
That's right.
But anyways, it's like, it's at this point where it's like, if somebody wants to pay for a product placement or advertisement on a podcast in this part of the state or in Wisconsin, I am one of the top people to choose from. And when you're at that level, you're creating your own value. And then if they want to be a part of it, you can kind of set the price. And so like, it is at a point where I really do think, and it was never about the money, but I do think within a year or two, financially, I'll be in a much better place than I am now. And it's sustainable now anyways, but like, I'll finally be able to buy a new car maybe.
You know, so yeah, speaking about like earning money, I mean, I think, you know, from podcasting, I think it's such an interesting, you know, conversation because, you know, I don't know about you, but I mean, I you know, on Facebook, there's a bunch of different podcast groups on there. Some are better than others. I don't know if are you part of any of them?
No, dude, it's just so hard to keep up with all the different platforms. Like Facebook's one that is like really been on the back burner for me. And it's like partially because my audience is generally younger. But I have interviewed people that are huge on Facebook where I'm like, we did collab posts and I really missed out on the benefits because I just like, I mean, I have the page, I just don't really use it.
Yeah.
But I know like there's things like that. There's Reddit forums, there's like Discord channels. There's so many things to be able to connect with other people in regards to it. But tell you what, dude, so like solo entrepreneurship really is about just time management. You can't do everything, and there's unlimited opportunities to invest into yourself, whether it's like education or literally financial, like, whatever. And you just have to figure out like, where do you have your priority that day? And unfortunately, that's one that's kind of taking the back burner. What I do when I'm like looking for advice is I go to my neighbor, Austin Power, who's a videographer. He doesn't like shoot anything for my show, but he's just kind of my go-to person when I have questions about stuff. So I learn stuff from him, YouTube tutorials when I'm running into problems with things. People like you, my buddy Cody, who does this show called the On Tap podcast, which is in Minnesota. It's more comedic or whatever, a little less appropriate than mine, but also similar enough. Like we've had some same guests. I've been on his show. I go to you guys. Like those are where I go to learn stuff from.
Yeah. So like the podcast groups, like on Facebook, for example. So a lot of them, I mean, some of them have like, 20, 30,000 people in them. And, a lot of it is like that, those spammy type, people that are just, you share something, all of a sudden you get 10 DMs of trying to sell you like their editing or their podcast promotion bullshit stuff, and a lot of it's nonsense, but, it's weird. Like I see, and I guess like looking back on it, maybe it makes more sense, but like I see a lot of like newer like beginner type people, or even people that have been doing it for like a couple years or more. And a lot of times people like share and they're like, hey, is anyone making money from their show? Like this and that, like those types of questions like pop up a lot. And everybody, like in some of the groups, not all of them, but some of them, people like there's a lot of people that really comment and engage. Sometimes there's like 100 comments, and like I don't spend, obviously I'm not sitting there reading them all, but like occasionally I'll see something pop in my feed and I'll read a couple. And I see people, the reason I'm saying this is I'm going back to how you said, like, when you started, like, it wasn't about the money. And same thing with me. Like, that's why I tell everybody, like, everybody always asks, like, why do you think you've been so successful at it? I say, like, well, part of it is, number one, I've just been consistent as hell. But number two is, like, I didn't do it to make money. Like, that wasn't, like, not that I thought it was impossible, but kind of, sort of. And I sort of just did it for fun. And then it just kind of, obviously it grew. And, but because I think like I wasn't trying to like chase the money, it just sort of was the byproduct of the quality of the show, right? But like a lot of these people on there like will post and, oh, like how's everybody getting sponsors? How's everybody doing this and doing that? And like everyone's like, I'm not making a dime. Like, oh, I made 10 cents. And it's not that hard to actually make some money. Like it is, but it's not. Like, and I don't know. It's just a really weird dynamic, I feel like sometimes.
It's supply and demand, dude. It really is like comes down to like the most simplest business things. Like the supply of beginner podcasts is just like out of control.
Yeah.
There's a million people that just have Audacity with like a $100 Yeti mic that are recording. And I'm not trying to like talk down about it. It's just like, that's the case, right? Like when I started, I was literally doing that. I was using a free program, Audacity, and I was using the first 2 episodes I recorded with the internal mics of my computer. I ended up re-recording them.
Yours was audio only when you started too, right?
Yeah, because it was like radio.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I didn't do video until way later, but it's like, when you're starting at that level, there's so many that are at that level that like brands and stuff don't care to invest in sponsorship dollars because it's not worth their time.
Yeah.
If you're only showing like, hey, I had 50 people listen to this, whoever's in charge of the marketing budget for, Drink Wisconsin Blee as a sponsor or whatever, like they rule. But it's like you contact the person in charge of their marketing. They're like, they don't even want to deal with like the work that goes into getting that ad placement, approving the ad, like all that stuff for 50 listeners. It's like just too big of a pain, It's like, that's why most of these companies have a smaller group of influencers they work with, whether it's like influencers or podcasts or whatever. They don't want to deal with that many because there's too many to keep track of. So they only want to deal with the ones that like give the biggest results. So if you're trying to like make money from your show, for one, that shouldn't be why you have a show, because if you're doing anything to make money, dude, pick something else. Like, this is the one that you're going to invest way too much into before you ever make anything. And even a lot of the biggest ones, dude, Tony Hawk's podcast just failed. How crazy is that?
Really?
Tony Hawk. Yeah, it's called Hawk versus Wolf. And they had huge people on there, right? Like big people. It's Tony Hawk. And he just announced like a few weeks ago that they had to cancel it because they just like financially couldn't make it feasible. Dude, if Tony Hawk can't make it feasible, it's a good sign to show you like how hard it is to make real money doing it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like there's just all these people trying to make money on something that they just don't have value for anyone yet. And that's okay that they like don't have value for somebody yet, but that just is the case. You know, people have to be a little bit more realistic, I think, of like what their worth is. It's the same way like I'm sure you get it all the time too. You get people messaging you saying, "Hey, I want to come on your show." And it's like, okay, well, since this is my full-time job, you know, like between all the short form content across all the platforms, all the things, sending all those analytics to all the sponsors, like how I make this feasible as like a full-time career, it has to make sense. And if you're approaching me and you don't really fit the guest dynamic that I'm talking about, you know, that is normally featured, if you don't really have an audience to share it yourself, that matters. You know, when I'm like talking with sponsors, that is part of the conversation when I'm dealing with Quick Trip or whoever, like one of my sponsors is,
yeah, like, well, yeah, what are these people? Yeah, who are these people having on? What are their audiences like?
These are the people that I'm interviewing. And guess what? Like, you're paying me for product placement, but this person who's got however many followers, who has this audience, is also sharing that content. So you're getting product placement on their pages because of me. It's like all that stuff plays in, right? So like you get all these people messaging you saying like, "Hey, I want to come on your show." And you just have to try to figure out how to explain to them, like, it's not that you don't have value, but like you don't have the right type of value currently for what this is.
Sure.
It doesn't mean you won't get there. It's that you just currently aren't there. It's the same way I wasn't like DMing Tony Hawk saying, "Hey, have me on your show," because it wouldn't make any sense for him to do that yet, right? It's like who he's looking for is different. So I don't know. It's like people are trying to make money way too early with a lot of that stuff.
I agree.
I think when I was talking about, saying this to that podcasting class too at the UW-Madison, was like, you know when it's time to make a living from like your passion, from your hobby, your side hustle, whatever. Like, you know when to quit your job is because you're having too many paid opportunities come your way. There's like a switch there, I think, right? Where like money kind of starts trickling in without you really trying. And if money's coming in without you really trying, that means, okay, if I do try, I can make more than what that dollar amount is. Right. But if there's no money trickling in without you trying, that means even if you try really hard, the amount of money you're going to make is really, really minimal and not worth the effort yet.
Yeah.
Just focus on building the thing to be worth something first. Then once you start having that come in, you can look at like, how can I monetize this further and make this like more realistic? And then maybe you get to a point, where it's like, this is such a big part of my life. This takes up so much of my time. I think I can make this a full-time living. And even then, most of the time when people do that, they take a massive pay cut.
Oh yeah.
And this isn't just like for, podcasting, this is music or whatever your like hustle is. You take a big pay cut going from a regular job to do that. And then it takes a long time to build that up to catch up to what money you were making before. And then, to eventually surpass that. We're talking like a 5 to 10 year time frame for most people. Like it takes a long time. Look at how long like Joe Rogan was doing that show before anyone really cared.
Crazy, right?
Like, regardless of if you like Joe Rogan or not, I'm not a big fan, but Joe Rogan's the biggest show, makes the most money, whatever, but he's got thousands of episodes. We're talking like years and years of him being a celebrity, interviewing celebrities, and people still didn't really care.
Right. And he still didn't really make that much money, and, up until, I'll say somewhat recent. And again, just like you said,
dude, when he got that $1 billion Spotify deal,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's like, but now he's making money.
Yeah, but he was probably doing it for 10 years by that point.
Yeah.
I mean, that show's been going on forever.
But yeah, I don't even know how long, but it feels like it's as old as we are. Like it's just, again, it's just one of those things. It's like you don't realize how many reps somebody has put in until like, like everybody just thinks like, oh, it looks easy. Oh, he's got to be making money and this and that. And, again, like, and I'm sure that probably the same holds for you. Like, I didn't make money even for the first, I mean, I brought in some money, but like it still wasn't enough. Do you know what I mean?
No, it was like $50 here, $100 there. It was like not enough to contribute to your bills hardly at all.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah. And even at some points, even like a couple of years into this, like when I got some growth opportunities, even like when I started actually making some real money, well, I still didn't take the paycheck. I just took the money to reinvest it into the show.
Right.
That's the other thing. I think everyone's just like, oh, like, yeah, once you start making money, like that's it, you're good. And then you can start, well, no, like you don't realize that like as time goes on, like you got to invest more money back into it to make it better and to grow it and all that. Like there's just so many different things that people just don't think about. And everyone just think about making a quick buck. And like that drives me nuts. Like,
yeah, and that's when people are like, oh, how much money does it take to get started? And I'm like, well, nothing. But like, how much money does it take to be where things are at now? A lot. You know what I mean? Like each camera, I think retail now, I got 3 cameras. Each one's like $700 or something, right? Mm-hmm. And then I got to get tripods, and I have like nice ones for all of those. And then I have to have I have a really expensive case for them, and then I have like the power source for them. So I have extra batteries, right? But then I also have like batteries that just plug in.
Yep, same.
So that way the battery can't run out. Yep. So I had to buy those ones for it. Yep. I have the extra power strips for it. I have my lighting kit that I have. My laptop, I'm on my 3rd one now, and this one's like pretty tricked out to be able to handle 3 camera angles of 4K. And then I had to get, I have 3 microphones of these. Each one of these is $400, and then you have your
and just all the cables.
Dude, all the cables and stuff.
We probably have like $1,000 just in cables.
Dude, yeah, no, for real though. I'm not even kidding. I left one of my more expensive ones the other day with a guest on accident. And I was like, please mail that to me, because that's actually like not that cheap.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm just saying, like you add all this stuff up, and it's like, I don't even know, somewhere in the $5,000 to $10,000 range for all my equipment.
Easy.
I didn't buy all of that in one go.
Right.
That was investing. Like I got hired by this music festival a couple years back, and I used the paycheck from that music festival to buy 2 more camera angles. Which wasn't, you know what I mean? That's 2 cameras plus all the extras for all of them and all the like that was a lot. And then that was what triggered me to have to get a more upgraded laptop too. It's like I actually ended up spending money. What I got from that paycheck, which triggered me to buy and invest all these things, wasn't enough for that investment. So I ended up spending even more money to be able to do that. You know what I mean? But that's how you like slowly build it up to be something. But again, it's all based on like, I say this to people all the time, is if you didn't need to make money, how would you choose to spend your time? Right. And if I didn't need to make money, I know that I would still do the show because I really genuinely enjoy doing it. If I didn't need to make money, maybe I would spend less time trying to get sponsorships. Maybe I would hire an editor so I didn't have to deal with it or whatever, but I would still do the show. Because I still I just really like doing it. Yeah. And so if you're not comfortable like starting the thing when you're doing it, if you're not comfortable with the idea that this may never make money, would you still do it if it didn't make money? If you wouldn't, then you're probably putting your time into the wrong thing. Find something that you would do regardless of if you make money. If you love it that much, then over time, eventually you tend to get to a point where you can make money, but you're not going to hit that otherwise.
100%. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, totally. Because just like you said, like if you're in it just for the money, I mean, you're definitely doing it for the wrong reason, and that's just a road to zero. It's a road to burnout. It's a road to just everything. You're just gonna crash and burn because you're only...
dude. Just learn how to do the stock market if you're trying to like put money. Like if you're just trying to learn how to make as much money as possible as a passive income.
Yeah,
learn the stock market.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Or there's other things, but that would be one of them. Don't get into something like podcasting. It really is like if the thing you want to make money on is something the vast majority of people do as a hobby for free, the only way you're going to get paid is if you do it on a higher level and probably significantly higher level than all those people that do it for free. And that is really, really hard to do. Think of the number of people that play guitar because they like it.
Yeah.
Think of the number of people who get paid and travel the world playing guitar. Less than 1%, dude. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they were doing it for a long time, not making money too. It's like, that's just how that works, man. I'm not trying to discourage people from doing things like this or anything. It's just like, you really got to put the time and energy into something that you would do if you didn't make money.
Yeah, totally.
And then as that grows, you can figure out how to monetize it. And I think it is important to figure out how to monetize it simply from the fact of like, if this is your side thing, you can only put so many hours a week into it, because you have your full-time job, maybe you have a family, like I have 2 kids. It's like, you can only put so much time. if you get to a point where it's feasible to make it your full-time career, then all of a sudden you can triple or whatever the amount of hours per week that you get to put into this thing you really care about, you know, and that's awesome in its own thing. And I'm not saying people shouldn't chase that. It's just like, you got to be comfortable with that not happening. You know what I mean? And it's also okay for your goals and things to change. Like, you can start doing a podcast, have zero expectations, and a year later be like, that was fun. You don't have to do it anymore. You know what I mean? Like, this dude I interviewed recently.
Yeah.
This dude I interviewed recently, Timmy the Dreamer, he does motivational speaking to kids at schools and stuff. And when he was in college, he started a podcast called the Dreamology Podcast that didn't go anywhere, you know? So verbally in our interview, he was like, yeah, you know, it failed. And it was like, well, did it really fail? Because he learned a lot from all the people he was interviewing. And not only that, those things taught him and helped connect him to people that ended up being kind of integral, like, parts of his story arc, people that ended up becoming mentors to him, that opened doors for him, and that started from the podcast. So did it fail as far as the standpoint of, like, it never made him money through views or sponsorships? It never, like, got to a point where he had a large fan base and he gave up on it, I guess, but he got a ton of other value from it. That wasn't what he was planning on doing from the beginning, you know, but that's okay that happened. You know, when I started painting, I didn't expect to paint murals. That was like an idea that came later on that I was like, that would be neat, you know? And then I started getting jobs like that because opportunities came my way, and I was like, whoa, this is like pretty dope, but I didn't plan on doing that. And now I paint way less. Now I almost always paint murals. You know, but that wasn't what the initial vision of it was at all.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny too. Like, you know, thinking back, like, you know, I'm going back a few years here, you know, or only just actually like a couple years ago. I mean, like 2 to 3 years ago. And, you know, there had been people that had, like, you know, started to approach me like, hey, like, you know, I want to do a podcast. Like, you know, we should, like, do, you know, could you help me start other podcasts and we can all, like, sort of do this together. And, like, at some points, like, I remember, like, thinking back to those days when, and I literally would think to myself, like, number one, I didn't have the time. Number two, I just didn't even have the knowledge or the skill. Like, I wanted to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to be able to, like, produce and develop other shows. But I, like, at the time, like, when the ideas, like, were coming up and people were approaching me, I was just like, I love the idea and I'd love to do it. I'm just like, I just don't think I'm not ready yet. Like, I'm not there yet, you know? And, you know, and then obviously there came a point where I did. And, you know, like I said, like, right now, like, I produce multiple other shows, you know, in addition to mine.
Wild, dude.
And like, it's so crazy to think back, because, like, just a couple years ago, I wouldn't even have thought it was possible for me to not only be producing my own show, but several others, all at the same time, like, all that have weekly episodes, and, like, just the amount of content and everything that goes into all of it. I mean, obviously, I know, you know, right? But, like, it's
well, to a certain degree, I don't do multiple shows, but I know it goes into it. But man, when I saw you started doing that, I was like, that's a lot, you know? But it goes back to what you were saying at the very beginning of, like, you don't realize how much you know.
Yes.
Until you start, like, teaching people and helping people, and you're like, oh, wow, I really do actually know a lot.
And
I understand why people would want to work with me. Yeah, that is a big part of it, is, like, I've noticed as time's gone on, you know, with, like, video especially, like, I didn't start taking video seriously until November of last year. You know, I had gotten hired for that music festival. That was in, like, September. I want to say that I did that. And so that was when I finally was like, okay, let me try to figure this out. So it wasn't until, like, November where I was, like, confident that I kind of had the major kinks of it worked out, where I'm like, generally, I'm happy with how this looks. Started pushing YouTube, and I hit 100,000 views lifetime of my channel on YouTube on January 9th, last year, like 2024. And as of right now, I'm at, like, 1.6 million something, right? But I didn't, like, try to focus on that at all until way later. And I didn't realize, like, how much stuff that I did know about that. And now, like, people ask me for advice all the time on those things, and I'm like, well, I actually could help you. But like I said at the beginning of this interview, I can't really teach you that in 30 minutes. Because I actually do have a wealth of knowledge that would take a really long time to me just tell you, let alone teach you all of these things.
Right.
You know what I mean? But anyways, what I was getting at is I've become much more efficient with it. Where at the beginning, the thought of, like, I put out probably 20 or more clips on average from every episode across TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and then Instagram. It's like 20 on each. You know what I mean? So I'm giving 60 plus opportunities to algorithms for something to kind of pop, which is like kind of how things work. But at the beginning, I was like, this is like impossible. I can't put this out every week. There's no way, you know? And now that I'm doing that, I've like learned so many dumb little, you know, hotkey shortcuts where I'm like, boom, this little thing saves me 2 minutes per hour of work, you know, but all those things compound where all of a sudden I'm like, I actually could keep up with this. Maybe I could do more. And then I start adding a little bit more things and more things and more things because you just get a lot faster at doing all of these things.
Yeah, it is. It's so crazy. Like I said, like the growth, you know, like once you know, and the knowledge that you know, I mean, this could be obviously with anything, not just what we do, but you just become so much more efficient. And like looking back on it, like I was like terrified. Like I knew I wanted to do it, but I was like terrified of like thinking like, how am I ever going to be able to produce like just one other show, let alone like several, right? And but like you said, like I've just developed like systems and processes, and you know, by the way, it's like not just me. Like I have an editor, and you know, I've had, you know, a couple different people that have helped with different aspects of not just my show, but other you know, some of the other shows too. But you know, so I can't sit here and say like I'm the one doing it all, because like I'm not, right? But at the same time,
but you're overseeing all of it.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm overseeing a lot of it. A lot of it, you know, it's a lot of it is, you know, my direction too. But again, like it's like just all these things that I've learned, and I've just become so much more efficient and so much better at that. You know, again, like you just forget how much you know. Like I'm working with a couple other shows that we're gonna, you know, that I'm helping, you know, a couple people launch, you know, hopefully within the next couple months. And again, like, you know, starting from zero at this ground level with some of these people, like it's crazy to, you know, again, I literally just last week I took somebody through the process, like at the very beginning, like, all right, here's what you need to buy, here's what you need to do, here's what you have to do, you know, online with this and that and this and that. And it's just like, it could be totally overwhelming, and I totally understand like why people either never start or they start and then they quit, because it is like, it could be very, very overwhelming, you know? But
that's
again,
the case
like,
with anything though, dude. When you're playing guitar and then you watch a Led Zeppelin like solo, you're like, I'll never be able to do that. You know what I mean? It's just like, so it's all perspective on that stuff. It is crazy and like super cool that you are doing that. I am curious, not that you ever asked me to like be a part of it, not that I recall. And like, I'm busy with my own stuff and I'm like different area or whatever. So I'm not like trying to pitch that to you in any kind of way. I like doing stuff on my own, but how exactly did that happen? And how many shows do you manage these days? And are they all recorded in your studio, or how does that work?
Yeah. So it's kind of a long story. So let me just back up a little. So like my first like initial original vision, which I think, you know, which is kind of like what you're saying. And I think we probably like messaged maybe about it at some point, and like, just, you know, I might have asked you a couple questions just to try to get, I'm just trying to get like, you know, somebody who is like a serious podcaster. I was trying to get like your insights, you know what I mean? But yeah, like at first, like my first like initial like idea or vision was to produce the shows, like put our name on it and have it be like, you know, like owned here, like, and we're going to help monetize it, et cetera, and so on. And, you know, again, like, you know, I did that. We developed three other shows, and it you know, it sort of just became, you know, like real cumbersome. Like it just, again, like same thing, like you're not going to make as much money as you think. And I kind of knew that going into it, but, you know, I've sort of like recently pivoted to more of just like a white label service. Like that's what I'm working towards now, where so most of of all the other shows, like they were being recorded here. Like I actually have another studio around the other side of the wall here. But yeah, so like originally, like I said, I want to like try to develop like the in-house shows and sort of like make them our own and try to help develop talent, et cetera, and so on. And I guess I sort of like realized, like, not that it wasn't for me, but like kind of sort of. And I just sort of just learned it by like trial and error, just doing it. like they made some money, but like, again, nothing that like anyone is going to live off of.
Right.
And, but again, we all learned, like everyone, we all learned from, the process and the experiences. And, but yeah, so like I said, like now I'm sort of pivoting more to, just like a B2B service, where like, whether you use my studio or not, it doesn't matter. Like, again, like if somebody has a virtual just like a strictly virtual show, you could be in Europe, it doesn't even matter. Or if somebody if somebody has a studio and they have all the equipment and everything and record like we do and just, want to upload and, Dropbox me the files, like, again, same thing. We could still produce everything from afar, whether it's a virtual show or whether you have a studio or not. But yeah, so like I said, it's more now I'm more, leaning in the direction, of just working with, like, again, when I say B2B, I mean, obviously, like somebody like you, I would still even though you're not like, you are a business, but like, you're not like, I'm just saying like a giant corporation, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'd be interested to work with like entrepreneurs, certain level of podcasters, again, like no offense to anyone just starting and not that, I wouldn't work with somebody just starting because I 100% would, and most of them probably are just going to be starting. But it's people that have the budget to put behind it for us to actually do the work. People think this. I think people think that like producing a show just costs like a couple $100, and it's like no, it's not the case. So, so I mean,
well, I mean, it's the same thing when people like want you to interview them and stuff. And I'm not trying to like beat that horse, but it's just like. It really like has to make sense because it's not a small job.
Yeah.
Like somebody kind of like pushed me on that the other day and was just like, like I helped you with this thing. What I was just kind of like trying to guilt me. And it was like, man, if you were just asking me to help you move on a Sunday afternoon, I would do you that favor. It's not that I wouldn't do you a favor. If you needed a couple $100, I would do you that favor. But for me to do an episode of my show is 40 hours minimum of actual work that goes into it, plus all the investment of the equipment that I have. Plus it's my platform that like, if I have somebody that doesn't fit, that costs me like a lot, because when I'm dealing with sponsors, they're looking at who have been the guests of the show. When I'm trying to get a hold of new people, they're like, who else has been on the show? Mm-hmm. It's like all these things matter. And so it's like, it's a big ask. It's not a small ask. You got to be really careful about that stuff. This isn't, when you're doing this as like a full-time job, this is a business decision. Like you're going into business with this person, whether it's short-term or long-term or whatever, like it has to make sense for both people. You know what I mean? I'm not going to hit up a major, like, I'm not going to hit up Joe Rogan and say, hey, who's your producer? Do they want to produce my show? It would be a huge waste of their time. Like, they're not going to do that. Why would they do that?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has to make sense from all those standpoints.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for you, like I think it's really interesting with yours, by the way, how like you travel with it, right? Like I've traveled a couple times, but like, I mean, I've traveled literally to Africa, but,
so sick, dude.
But I mean, you travel a lot, like you travel like pretty much all of them, right?
Most of them, Eau Claire is where I live. EAU space CLAIRE. It's French for clear water, because we're on the confluence of two rivers. But anyways, it's about 90 miles east of Minneapolis. It's just, you're not going to get the people that you want to come to your house, like not most of the time. When you start getting bigger guests and stuff, like a lot of it's just working around their schedules, when they're available, how much time they have, whatever. So I get why, because I have people all the time say like, yeah, let's just do a virtual one. And I could get a hold of some pretty epic people if I was willing to do virtual, but it's just like, I don't want to do that. Honestly, part of it is like virtual content people don't care about as much. Like it's hard to make a clip go like do well online if it's virtual. This will be a little bit better because I'm using my own camera and like because
we know what we're doing.
Like it's not just like a Zoom thing, but most of the time when you get a hold of these people, they're not professional podcasters. Like they could be celebrities, but they're still just using like their camera on their laptop with the and those clips just don't do well.
Shitty background.
Right. So it's just like, I interviewed this like illusionist recently, virtual for like a venue so that's why I wasn't on my platform. But dude, like it did not look good at all. And this dude, like he works with Adele. Like he's like a big time illusionist, makes a ton of money. And like it sounded and looked not so great because he wasn't set up to do that. Yeah. But no, I like, from the beginning, going back to what we were talking about, like about you just need to enjoy the thing. I just genuinely don't enjoy doing virtual interviews. Not enough to want to put 40 hours of
and
work
do it
into
like all
it
the time
for a week. Yeah, it's just like, I just don't really personally want to do it. Everyone can be bought. Like if somebody wanted to give me 10 grand to do a virtual interview, I would do it. But just generally speaking, it's like, I just wouldn't really enjoy doing it. So I don't, but it does make things really hard. You know what I mean? Because I am all the time traveling. A couple of weeks ago, and on Friday, I have to drive to Milwaukee, which is a 3.5 hour drive for me without traffic. You know what I mean? Could definitely be longer. But I woke up, I've made a post about this. I woke up at like 6:45. I think I was on the road by 7:45 or 8 a.m., drove to Madison, which was a 3-hour drive, got to Madison, interviewed this dude, Wisco Dexter Patterson. He's a professor there. So I did the interview with him. Then we had lunch. Then I was the guest lecturer for his podcasting course, and then drove straight from there through traffic, because it was like 5 p.m. to Milwaukee to interview Nate Vom Hoff, whose episode just dropped today. It's that drone videographer in like downtown Milwaukee. Finished that interview and then drove all the way home. And when we're talking about all this equipment that we got, you can't see on camera right now, it takes me like, dude, minimum half an hour to set up all the equipment, you know? So that tacks on anywhere from an hour to 2 hours of just setting up and taking down the thing. And then I had to drive all the way home. I got home, it was after midnight, and that was just like work mode that whole time. I was exhausted, and that only got me two episodes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like that happens all the time. So it's a lot of work, but at the same time, that is kind of what sets me apart. You know, and I think the guests care a lot more because they can see how invested I am in it.
For sure.
You know, if I'm like, hey, you know, I interviewed the editor of Thrasher a few years ago in Texas. Like I DM'd him and I drove from Wisconsin to Texas to interview him in person at his house. Right.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so because I did that, he was like, oh, you care this much? Okay, I will turn my phone off and I'm yours for however long we need.
Yeah, people take it real serious.
The time.
Yeah.
Right, because they see that you care and you take it seriously. Like the number of times people get DMs from people saying, hey, can I interview you? And it's a virtual thing. They're like, yeah, whatever, I'll hop on quick and we'll do the thing. And you'll probably ask me the same questions as everybody else.
It's half-assed.
They're not very present themselves as a guest. Like then they also don't really care to share the content because it doesn't look that great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for me, it is really worth it, and it really does set me apart. I look at some of my other buddies who have great shows, dude. Like some other really great shows, if you want to check them out, that are in the Midwest. Milwaukee Uncut is Milwaukee, obviously, right? And they have a studio. It's awesome, and they have they just had somebody from the Milwaukee Bucks on. They've had Packers players on. We're going to do some content together. We share some sponsors. Their studio's dope. Like it's really, really nice, but they're limited by people have to be in Milwaukee. And it's like about Milwaukee, or about Wisconsin. So it really like it kind of has like a ceiling. Like there's just only so much you can really do with it. And the ceiling's pretty high. Like they're crushing it. I don't know if they ever want to do anything beyond that anyways. And they still have a lot of room to grow, but there's a limitation there. Mm-hmm. Versus I really don't have one. Or my other buddies that do the On Tap podcast, that's in Pine City, Minnesota. It's like an hour north of Minneapolis in this tiny town of 3,000 people. Mm. To get somebody to drive there, that's like a big ask.
Yeah, like good luck. Yeah.
Not only do they have to be in Minneapolis area, but then they're tacking on minimum 2 hours of their time just to drive. Like, so they're just limited by like what you can really do. Yeah. And for me, I just don't really have any limitations there. I have flown to LA. Like I used to go there for a week at a time to record seasons of my show. So there was a period of time where almost all my episodes were in LA. You know, I've done shows out in New York where I flew there. I've been, drove to Texas, went to Florida. Like I've kind of been around to do episodes, and now I'm like sticking in the Midwest. But even sticking in the Midwest, I'm not just in Eau Claire. Like you said, most of my episodes aren't actually recorded at home. As much as I would love that to be the case, it's just not how it works. I have to go based on people's schedules. Like I'm about to interview the dude who played the Xenomorph in the last Alien movie.
Oh, wow.
How sick, dude. I'm a huge Alien fan. So
that's
like
awesome.
This dude's not like mega famous, but like so sick, dude. I can't wait to do that. Yeah. But the only time I'm going to be able to get him is because he's flying to Green Bay for the NFL draft.
Okay.
So I got to drive over to Green Bay and catch him when he has time around when that happens, or I'm going to interview a Packers player again, I think in June when they come back for training camp.
Nice.
So I have to catch him when he has time, one of those days. But it just opens up the doors for a lot. And for me, it's just kind of an adventure. Like it's what keeps it fun. Not that I want to spend as much time driving as I really do, but
sure,
it's a whole experience.
It is an experience, man. Yeah.
It is. Like going and doing the one at UW Madison, I could have just done a virtual interview with the dude. and that would have been fine. But instead, I got to I've never been to UW-Madison, to the campus. So I got to go to the campus and be like a honored guest kind of a thing, like go have lunch and see some of the spots. And I get to speak in front of all these classes and make these cool connections with these people. When I went to Milwaukee, now I have a relationship with the Couture, which is the tallest residential building in Wisconsin. As crazy as that is, that's where we recorded it. And so now I can just like record at this like multi-million dollar 45-story building that's epic right on the lakefront, but I got to do that. Yeah. And like that itself was just a really fun experience to go through. And that would have only happened if I was doing it in person.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work. There's a reason this is my full-time job. It really is a job to be able to do this.
Yeah, it's a lot. And like you said, with the experiences that you have and the relationships that you build, again, like for me too, like the first time I ever took my show, I'll say on the road, which I only ever took it on the road twice. But the first time was in Nashville, and again, same thing. Like I was like, I just on a, not really on a whim, but like kind of almost sort of, but I offered it. I was like, yeah, I'll come there. And he was like, okay, cool. Shout out to Edward Crow, by the way, down in Nashville. But, him and I just, if it wasn't for me going there, like, would he have done the virtual? I mean, maybe. I didn't even, that wasn't even part of the discussion. It was just like, we talked about it. And then I was just like, I'm going to come there. And he's like, yeah, cool, all good. And because I did that, I mean, dude, he went out of his way to like hook me up. I mean, like out of his way. Like we only knew each other just from Instagram, kind of similar how we sort of knew each other. And but again, like I said, hey, I'm going to come. We're going to do it right, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, all right, cool. Like, this guy's serious. And like, then we showed up, and I'm sure he was probably still like even a little skeptical. Like when we were showing up, like, is this, he obviously could see my show and see that it's legit and all that. But like, is it going to be the same quality of like when I'm there? You know what I mean? I knew it was, but yeah. Sure. So like I said, like he like went out of his way to like get me other extra guests while I was there. He set me up with, he let me use Yellow Wolf's recording studio to record another episode. I mean, there's just so many things that like, he basically trusted me pretty much with his life with some things, like allowing me to like use some of these spaces. And like, he was just like, yeah, man, here's the key. Just return it like later today and just make sure you put everything back exactly the way it was. And I'm like, you got it, man. I just gave him my word and I did exactly what I said I was going to do. And like, we've just become great friends ever since. And again, like those relationships and like that has turned into just levels. I can't even begin to tell you the levels of relationships that it then built, because like I did what I said I was going to do. I held to my word. It was quality, it just, et cetera, and so on, and
you invested so much into them by coming out there. Like the in-person thing is like that for me. That is a big part of it. Is just like I really enjoy having that one-on-one conversation, regardless of recording it. It's just like I love meeting people like that. Yeah. And now it's cool because I've been able to meet all these people that like I grew up looking up to. Like, I interviewed Greg Lutzka not crazy long ago, who's by far the most famous skateboarder from Wisconsin ever, and like. He's my homie. I just like text with him. He's the coolest dude. He's a peer that's definitely way more successful than me, but like he's helped me with a lot of things after the show. You know what I mean? Just like texting with him and stuff. And that's only happened because I did it in person. So it's like all these intangible things happen because of it that are really for me, it really is worth it. And I still like, I really do feel my show is at like the very beginning of what it's going to be.
Same.
I really do feel that way. And that's one of the many reasons, like I said, of being able to do them in person or investing myself into doing them in person like that, is that I see it being much, much bigger. And I know that if I did it virtually, it would limit that significantly. How many people really care about being on a podcast in central Wisconsin? Like not that many people, man. They wouldn't care otherwise, and my show's not about Wisconsin, but it's just like, because I'm doing this in person, the quality of the content looks great. There's no reason you have to live anywhere near where I live to enjoy the show. Yep. It's not really about that. And my goal long-term is to be the biggest like podcaster interviewing personality in this part of the country, because we really don't have anyone super significant not even in Detroit or Chicago or Milwaukee or Madison or Minneapolis. Like there's really nobody in that zone. And so like, that's what I want to be, traveling around, interviewing all these people. And you're right. They will go so much further out of their way, dude. When I interviewed the editor of Thrasher, if I would have done that virtually, there's no way that would have gone on the front page of thrashermagazine.com.
Oh, yeah.
But when the episode dropped, they put it on the front page of their website. Like, that's the biggest media outlet in skateboarding by a wide margin. Yeah. And I got to be on there. Like, just for me personally, was like so exciting. It was so cool. And the only reason that happened was because Michael Sieben was just like down because I drove to Texas for him.
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, oh, this is sick. And when I was down there, he's like, yeah, man, if you go to Portland, like, I could get you Aesop Rock. And like, I'm a huge fan. I just haven't gone to Portland yet. But he's like, I could get you Sibo Walker.
Yeah, see, so it opens the doors. It opens all these other doors,
right.
Man.
They're like, anyone who's in my network, now that I know you personally, I've had this like dialogue.
I trust you now.
Who you are.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like, now you're in with me. Cool. I would happily connect you to this person or that person or whatever. Yep. But it's all about investing yourself into things, man. Again, it's like investing time into things, investing, money into your equipment. Yeah. It's all about investing and growing over time. And so it's just another one of those things where it's like, there's not a secret to that. The whole like it's who you know thing is because of how much time and energy you've put into cultivating relationships with people. It's not because you were lucky and met this person or whatever. It's you've just met hundreds of people. And you've done right by all hundreds of those people.
That's right.
In which case, that's what opens those doors, over time. But it's just something that grows slowly but surely over an extended period of time, and eventually reap the rewards as far as like financially and all that. But again, like that's not going to happen for a really long time. So if you're not cool with that never happening, then you just shouldn't do it.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I think when when people see that you're investing the amount of time and money and just everything that you're investing into it, like they take you so much more serious. And like, and if it wasn't for that, they're like you said, they would just be like, whatever, I'll just do this thing with this guy. It's just like, then they'll probably they'll forget about you, and they'll just you'll never even have a relationship after that. It'll just be like, oh yeah, I just did that thing with that guy one time, whatever. But like, when people see that, like how much time and energy you invest into something and really, really go out of your way, I mean, that's just like people recognize that. I mean, right away. I mean, I know I do. I know you do. But again, like it just it's a game changer. So again, like back to the whole secret thing. It's not that there really is a secret, but again, just like you said, just doing right by people and like actually putting in some like serious time and effort and energy, and to be different, and I think, one thing with you too, and again, I don't even know how the hell we even stumbled across each other, but I
really don't remember because has to have been 3 years or more.
Yeah. And I bought one of your hoodies like forever ago. I think that was like the first thing. But again, like your stuff just stood out to me again, because of the quality and again, I'm going back years, this was probably a time when both of us had just started video, right? And even for us both had just starting video, like whenever that was, like, again, I could tell that like you were serious, and I could tell that like you were into this, and like that you were genuine and authentic, and you could just see right through that with people. Like, doesn't matter what you do, like podcasting or not, influencers, whatever, it doesn't matter. But like you could just see right through that stuff. At least I feel like I could. But I could just tell, like when I stumbled across you, I'm like, this guy's cool. Like, this guy's legit. He's cool. Like, he gets it. And like, I was just like, I feel like this guy, like, you're my people, like, and and like over the years, like, like you, and like, there's some others too that like I've built, like, relationships with like this, like, around the country that, we never met. Right. But yeah, it's just something really cool that I feel like we have like this, like this community that, and it's so cool to be able to support each other, just bounce ideas off each other, whatever it is. And, yeah, man. And just like you said, just enjoy the journey and just like really love what you do, because, if you don't, like, it's just a road to burnout and miserable life.
Burnout's a big thing. But, talking about those relationships, that is how you get sponsors too, is like by taking it seriously and not being that guy that just DMs and says, will you sponsor me?
Right.
Because that literally leads to nothing 100% of the time. It really doesn't. It's like you have to provide value to people. That's the thing. Like, I really hate that saying that is like, what does it say? It's like, it never hurts to ask. I don't think that's true. I think it does hurt to ask if you're asking for something that isn't appropriate.
Yeah, or in the wrong context, or at the wrong time.
Right. If you're just like saying, gimme, it's like that's not going to work.
I don't want to deal with you.
It's going to close the door on what could happen.
Yeah.
Right. Another thing I was speaking to that podcasting class about was like, hearing no, the majority of the time actually just means not yet. It doesn't mean no. It means not yet, because of one of many reasons. You're not big enough yet. You're not reaching the number of views yet. it's not the right timing for their budget. They aren't big enough yet to invest in it. There's like a lot of different reasons why that's the case. And I've told this story before, but like Quick Trip, you're not from the Midwest, but Quick Trip is like the major gas station chain in the Midwest. And it's like, people weirdly love it here. It's like how people are obsessed with Buc-ee's down south. It's like a thing. People wear Quick Trip merchandise. It's a whole big thing here. And I wanted to work with them so bad. Because it's like, it really is like a weird clout thing that I work with Quick Trip. It's rad, dude. Like Quick Trip's dope. And if you don't follow their social media, you should. It's hilarious. But anyways,
I've seen you post. I've seen you post about it before,
dude.
And I'm just
they're
like,
so funny.
I've seen the content. I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, they rule. But yeah, I messaged them saying like, I would love to work with you guys. Not asking for a dollar amount, not asking for anything. I don't even think they responded the first several times I DM'd them over the course of months. And then eventually I got a DM back from them saying, send us an email, and gave me the email. I don't think they responded to the first email. I like kept sending messages. Eventually got an email back saying like, we love what you do, but we don't really advertise in the podcast space. But you never know, maybe in the future, you can hit us up again in 3 to 6 months. I did that, dude. 3 to 6 months later, hit them up. Hey, you ready to get into podcasting space? No. Okay, cool. 3 to 6 months later, hey, you thinking about going into the podcast space? No, not really. Okay, cool. And I think we had messages like that 3-4 times over the course of like a year.
Wow.
Until finally I got a message back. And so now at this point, it's like a year and a half in, maybe even 2 years since my initial like time I reached out, that I got the email back saying, actually, yeah, we're going over our budget and that this might be the right time. So send us a pitch. I was like, sick, And then even then, my initial like contract I got with them was like a 6-month contract. Was not like a significant dollar amount or anything, but that was like my foot in the door. Yeah. But the only reason I got that was because I like kept asking, and I wasn't asking for free money. I was presenting an opportunity to them.
Sure.
But even then, the opportunity wasn't the right time yet. For one of many reasons, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like I kept going, but it never was it a demand. It was me continuously providing value and providing opportunities of like, I would love to be connected and work with you guys. Here is what I could do for you if we work together. Yeah. It wasn't ever, hey, I need to make $500 a month or whatever from doing something. It's, this is what I can do. And then you could talk about dollar amounts or whatever. But like I said, that's just another thing is like another piece of advice for people is really like anytime you're asking for something, it's okay to ask, but only if you're providing some kind of opportunity for the person you're asking. And sometimes it's not weighted evenly. Sometimes what you're asking about benefits you more than it benefits that person, and you can just catch them at the right time and they'll say yes. Like I interviewed Lamorne Morris from that show New Girl, who plays Winston. Dude's a celebrity, he's an Emmy winner, and I interviewed him at his house a long time ago when it was just audio, where it really didn't make sense for him to do it. He just was like in a good mood and was like, yeah, why not? If you're in LA, sure, like let's do it, this will be fun. So it doesn't have to be something where it benefits both parties the same, but you still have to provide some kind of value if you're going to ask for anything.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like it's not even worth shooting your shot.
No.
It's better to wait until you have something of value to offer, or ask them too, like, what would it take for me to do this with you?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of value or opportunity would you need? Yeah. What would you guys need from me for this to make sense for you? Mm-hmm. And then you can work to be whatever that thing is. Yeah. And accepting that you're not wherever you're at that point, accepting that currently isn't good enough or whatever is totally fine. Because you're going to be better, 6 months from then or a year from then or whatever. So just like understanding where you are in that, I think helps quite a bit.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think too is just the having the willingness to look silly at first, in the journey of just like, again, like I always joke, I tell everybody, don't even listen to my please don't listen to the early episodes.
I say the same thing,
bad,
man.
like so bad, But again, like it's all part of the story, it's all part of the journey, and but having the ability to just to look silly, look dumb, and just figure it out along the way. I think that's so important because. If you're not willing to do that, I mean, you're not really going to advance because you're never gonna risk. You're never gonna take a risk. You're never gonna try. You're never gonna try to be different. Like it just won't work. It just won't work.
That's the thing with all these people trying to wait till the perfect time. It's like there's just, I guess that's just the guru advice you always hear, but really it is just like, there's never a perfect time. It's not going to be perfect when you put it out. Even if you spend a year trying to do something until it's like perfect, a year later, you're going to look at that thing that at the time you thought was perfect and go, wow, I could do it so much better now. You know what I mean? Like I told this story before. I forget who told me this. It's like a some kind of metaphor story. Just stick with me here. So here's a question. Here's a scenario. There's a pottery class, right? And the teacher tells you at the beginning of the pottery class, it's a semester long, they can grade you on one of two things. It can either be one piece of pottery that's just like you work on all semester and they'll just grade it at the end, or they can grade you on the weight of all of the pieces that you put together, right? So based on that, you think, well, what's going to be the better piece of pottery at the end? Who's going to make the best piece of pottery? Most people would say the person who focused all semester on one, right? That's not true. It's going to be somebody who made a whole bunch of them. And it's because that first person, it took them 6 months to make this mediocre thing because they didn't really know what they were doing, versus somebody else who's putting out a new thing every day that sucked. They're going to learn all these little things that towards the end of the semester, the thing they work on for 2 weeks is going to be better than the thing somebody else took 6 months to work on, because they were so focused on making that first thing perfect instead of just like putting stuff out. Like just put stuff out, whatever that thing is, like get all those reps in without an expectation for it to work. And then, again, that applies to anything, dude. Like the number of times you're trying to do a kickflip before you land your first one, and that first one still sucks, right? You got to keep doing it. It's the number of free throws you have to throw before you start hitting that percentage of like, oh, I make 50% of the time. Like it that applies to anything. People are just holding themselves back because they don't want to look dumb. It's like, you just have to be okay with the fact that you're going to look dumb. And it's all perspective too, because even when you get to a point where you think that you don't look dumb, or your previous self would think that, well, 2 years from now, you're going to look back on that moment and go, wow, I look dumb. You know what I mean? Like when we're talking about our podcast, it's like 2 years ago, I was still pretty proud about what the show, sounded like or looked like. And now looking back on it, I'm like, mine's a lot better now than it was at that point in time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. And the same thing I always even think too, like, I know even in 6 months or a year from now, I'm going to be looking back at where I'm at now and being like, not that, I'm not going to be like, oh, that was horrible, but I'm going to be like, but it's even better now. It's even better, like I'm always just trying to find a way to just enhance it, just always make it better, just continually improve. And like you said, I think the point of like, just, putting out more, again, it's just rep after rep after rep. And the more you do it, the more you fail, the more you learn, the better you get. And I think that's, like you said, to echo what you said, it's everything. And I think, just if you just sit there on this one thing and just keep trying to shine the same thing, it's not going to shine anymore. Like you have to try one thing, put it out, and then maybe change directions a little, maybe do something a little different. Just more reps, I think is what leads to the success.
Yeah, progress, not perfection, right? It is that thing of like get 1% better every day rather than focusing on getting 100% better, in a week. It's just like focus on all those small things. And one thing that Dexter Patterson, Wisco Birder, said in his episode was, I'm trying to think of how he put it. Now I'm losing it. What did he say? He said, if you're not a little bit scared of what you're trying to do, then you're not dreaming big enough. And I thought that was a really cool way of putting it, because that is when you learn the most. Not that you have to like go way, 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 way out of your comfort zone, but if you're not pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone at all, you're not going to see the growth. Like you got to try to push yourself to do something that you haven't done before, in one way or another, even if it's just something small, even if it's something as small as like, I'm going to try making a thumbnail look different and see if this works. You know what I mean? It's like you got to constantly be trying something or another that pushes you outside of what you've been doing if you're going to see any growth. That's just how it works.
It's the only way.
And you get desensitized to it. The more you do it, the more okay you get with failing on things, because you're like, oh, this is just part of it.
Right. Yeah. You're just like, whatever. I've been through this before. Like, yeah, exactly. I feel like that's where, at least where we are both at. So, hopefully people made it this far into this episode, and I know we were probably pretty podcast heavy, but I think both of us have a pretty big network of other podcasters, or even just any other creators that consume our content. So hopefully they learned a thing or two here. The things apply
across the things, dude. It really does. All these things we're talking about apply to anything else. If you're trying to make clothing, every time you try a new design, you try a new garment, you try whatever, it would apply to that. If you're trying to become a photographer, you're not going to learn how to do cool depth of field tricks unless you try them and do them poorly, for an extended period of time. You're not going to learn how to get paid for your music until you start doing this thing. You're not going to learn how to do stand-up and make money unless you start pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, doing different things. And that's like the point of my show is I call it it's a what's my saying for it? Now I'm losing my train of thought. Anyways, but it's a storytelling experience where I interview unique people that are pursuing careers based on their passions to inspire others to do the same. And the point is, if somebody looks at whoever I'm interviewing the thing about, like I said, the most recent was a drone photographer, videographer. The one before that was somebody who like heads a birding club. You know what I mean? It's so, and the next one that's coming out is a DJ, and the one after that is like a motivational speaker at school. So it's kind of all across the board. But the point is, this person built a career out of something they're passionate about. And you can take lessons from whatever they did to make that work to whatever you're passionate about. And you'll be successful because you can pull it from all 200 plus people I've interviewed, right? You can go, oh, that little gem, that little thing that this dude did that worked for his industry would actually apply to what I'm trying to do. And I think that's the best way to come up with new ideas too. If you're only looking at people that are doing what you're trying to do, you can't really be better than what they are. You'll only ever emulate what they are. If you're looking at what other people are doing, especially if it's in a different industry, that's when unique ideas are going to come in and you can go, oh, I hadn't really thought about that. I bet nobody else has thought about that either. That would be really cool if I incorporated it into this thing.
Definitely, man. I think it's huge. And like I said, I think so many people are afraid to be different because they're afraid to be laughed at. And I think being different is everything, man. Like I've said this before, like I feel like I've always struggled to fit in all parts of life, you know, and it took me almost my whole life to realize like I wasn't meant to fit in. I was meant to be different. And you just embrace it, man. And that's what, just like you said before, it's what makes you unique. You know, like you said that at some point about yourself here. And same thing with me, man. I think just being different and really just being authentic and not straying from that path. And I think people recognize that, and that's what really attracts people to your content or to anyone's content. So I think that's super important. And like you said, just doing it for the right reasons. But
I heard somebody talking about this the other day, saying that like, if you're trying so hard to make something work that you're getting away from who you are personally, because you're trying to like make content that is going to appease whoever. The problem is, even if that hits, that's hitting for you not being yourself. And then you just have to keep replicating that.
Yeah.
Then you're not even going to be happy even if you do reach success. I'm not going to say who, but I have a good friend of mine who makes a certain type of content that is sick of it, dude. I was talking to him the other day and he's like, I'm going to lose followers. Like, I know I'm going to lose followers. I'm going to lose a ton of traction this year because I blew up for this thing. And that's not what I really wanted to blow up for. And I've been playing that game and I've been doing it because that's what like performs well online, but I don't want to do it. And I never really wanted to do it. It's just like this thing went viral and then I just like kept carrying it because that's what was working. But I gathered like I built the wrong audience. That sucks to hear. Not that he's going to see an entire fall off from all of it, and not saying it was a mistake, but that is the problem when you go viral and you start growing for something that isn't genuinely you. You have to replicate something that isn't you anymore. Yeah, and you got to play that game forever, and that sucks, dude. That's a trap you don't want to be in.
Yeah, it's like you got to become somebody or something that you're not. And like you said, you're forced to then just keep doing that thing to please the audience and the algorithm or whatever it is, because otherwise then all that goes away, which, sucks. So,
yeah, for real.
So if anyone wants to check out your show, find you, where do they need to go?
Super easy. Just search Passion Pod anywhere. It's everywhere. YouTube's a platform that I've been really focused on over the last year. And it's worth watching on YouTube, man. I do a lot to it. For one, like location's different all the time. So like that's kind of interesting in its own standpoint.
I love it.
But I add a lot of things to the screen. So like when people are referencing somebody they worked with, or they're referencing a music video they were in, like I include those things visually. And I'm pretty proud of how all that looks. So YouTube would be the spot for that. You can watch it on Spotify nowadays. And you can listen to it on every platform, Apple Podcasts, all that stuff. The main social media platform, if you want to like get a hold of me, would be Instagram, which is just Passion Pod. I'm also on TikTok and post pretty heavy there, which is Passion Pod Official. Yeah, those are the main spots. PassionPod.org is where you can go buy a sweatshirt, right. Or there you can find my Patreon. Like if you do enjoy, I really encourage people, if you appreciate a creator of any kind, figure out, like, look at however you can support them and do what you can. $5 a month. I'm not saying do it for me. You do it for Bill. You can do it for whoever, but like whoever you appreciate their art, especially if you're consuming a lot of it. Like, it is valuable to me. Like, if somebody watches the show, all those hours they put in, that is value, and I appreciate that. But you are then watching hours and hours and hours knowing I put a lot going into it. If you really appreciate it, do the Patreon. $5 a month, you'll probably forget about it. Like,
yeah.
It'd be perfect.
Oh, yeah. It's nothing.
But yeah, so on there, you can like find links to be able to get on Patreon, or if you just want to donate money or whatever, you could do that too. If you want to buy a t-shirt, you can. But really, the easiest thing for everybody is just hit the subscribe on the different things. Watch the content that interests you. I don't expect anyone to watch every single episode and be jacked about it, you know. But watch whatever ones seem to excite you, and hit me up on Instagram.
Hopefully, we'll do this again, but next time in person. Whether I'm there or you're here, I don't know, but we definitely got to figure something out.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally made it happen. We should have connected even if we weren't recording, just to like, have coffee and talk about ideas and stuff more though. But I mean, we should have had like we should honestly, just for our own sakes of like growth, meeting once every 3 months or something and having like a Zoom call just to like hang out and talk about what we've learned, I think would be helpful. We gotta start doing that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Cause like you said, I mean, again, just looking back at both of our journeys and how much like in 3 months time, you don't realize how much significant growth like you could have and how much may or may not change within a few months. So yeah, man, I'd love to keep the conversation going. And, obviously if we can help some other podcasters or creators or whoever else along the way, that's a bonus.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much, man. This was fun.
Awesome. All right. Chris Johnson, Passion Pod. Thanks for joining me. If you want to see more On the Stacks content, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/onthestackspodcast, or search the hashtag On the Stacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.